Hi, everybody. I'm John Benninger. Welcome to Catching Up. And today we're going to be catching up with good friend and industry colleague, Elan Sudberg from Alkemist Labs. Elan, how are you doing?
Doing great, John. How are you?
I'm doing fine, man. It's good to see you. Normally I would have seen you at Expo West here several times, I'm sure, but obviously that's when a lot of this started to hit, and we didn't get to do that. So it's nice to catch up. Appreciate you being here.
Likewise, it's an honor. Thank you.
Before we get started, how are you? How's the family? How's all the fine people there at Alkemist?
Everyone's good. I mean, we're missing our remote staff. We've got 1/3 off-site just to reduce exposure, and anyone who's in that sort of sensitive demographic is at home. Obviously, I can't send my chemist home with expensive machines, so I still have the people entering samples and people testing samples on site, and I'm here with my father. Just kind of holding the fort down and making sure morale is up. So, and on the personal level, everyone at home is perfectly fine. I've got 2 little kids, not really in school yet, so not too impactful as far as all the school shutdown and everything. And my wife is enjoying the time with the kids as well. So.
Yeah, we're getting through it. You know, you take each day as it comes, and we figure it out. But I love right from the beginning of all this. You were very clear. It's even on your email signature. It's on your website. We are here. The lab is open, and we are planning to stay that way.
Yeah, yeah. That was when it all first came down. It was a little scary. We're a tiny company. My competitors, our revenue is their balance sheet rounding error. So a few weeks off or a month off could be catastrophic to my little company. So when we were deemed essential by the government, and as well as several of our clients quickly wrote and said, we need you to stay open. We rely on you and your work. It was a breath of relief, at least that, we can remain open. And then, of course, how to do it safely, which is the next challenge, which we're still in, that was the next scary part of this. But here we are. We're still in. This is what, week 7 or 8 or 75? I don't know.
Something. I'm not sure. I'm losing track of time myself.
Right.
But yeah, so let's chat about that a little bit. The types of things that you've had to figure out to, keep people safe while you're functioning. Chat a little bit with us about how you've managed through this.
Yeah. So fortunately, we just moved in this, just like 2 years ago, moved in this big facility with lots of extra room for more people and more stuff, and that allows us to remain open with the current staff and practice the social distancing required, even in the lab. We moved some balances around so that people can use them next to each other, but within the 6 feet. All of the cubes are within about 6 feet. Our break room's adequate for a good sized amount of people keeping their distance. We're all wearing masks. I got so many masks on my desk. There's more masks, and we give them out every few days.
Yeah.
So we're wearing masks. We are wiping down surfaces constantly with isopropyl. We've got all the good chemicals here at the lab, so we can kill anything. So between those 2 things and social distancing, masks, and the wiping down surfaces, I feel pretty confident that we're going to make it through this okay. On the other side of it, it does take one person to get sick to get everyone else sick to just kind of tear this whole thing apart. So I've made it very clear to the staff, like, this is so important to keep the rules with social distancing and everything here and then at home as best as you can, because it just takes one person to get sick at home to then come here and get everyone else sick. So.
Yeah. Well, it's great that you're still open. The industry needs your services, obviously, and I want to chat about that a little bit with you too. Since this whole thing started, just curious about your view, your perspectives, what you're seeing in the marketplace with clients and just in the industry in general. What are you seeing?
So when the FDA put out their little press release about, hey, we're not going to be on the streets so much, my quick response was, that's a free pass for adulteration. And I got a little flack on that. But the fact is, adulteration has been around forever, and it's not going away. When the cops tell you where there's the DUI checkpoint, the DUI people don't drive there. When they tell you that there's no one at the stop sign giving tickets for running stop signs, perhaps people will be running stop signs more. So now the good news is we work with some of the best companies in the industry, so they're already really careful about sourcing and quality of the materials. So we actually haven't seen a huge uptick in adulteration. We've seen a pretty healthy uptick in testing in general. But a small percentage of on a bigger number is still a bigger number. So, as our sales or as our tests increase, we will still see more failures. But like I said before, there's no red flags. Not all the elderberry is failing. Not all the echinacea is failing at this stage right now. We're just seeing a lot more of everything, a lot more rushes, customers qualifying new vendors to quickly supply their materials. So it's pretty much normal for us here, with just the exception of having, for the first time ever, a third of our staff is remote, which has been a fairly new experiment for us in all these webcams and Zoom calls.
Yeah. Well, it's great to hear that you're not seeing a huge uptick in adulteration. I know I've expressed those concerns as well, especially around those materials that are in high demand right now. That's what we tend to see these things happen. So it's great to hear, because you have the perspective on this. Your organization testing this stuff.
Right.
So that gives me some confidence, and I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
You mentioned companies needing to qualify vendors. I'm guessing that with the disruptions to the supply chain, whether it's stuff from China or India or domestic shipping, all of this stuff is being disrupted.
Right.
I think there'd be quite a bit of that going on, where people are just trying to find what they need to make the products.
Yeah, well, it started with tariffs. The first interesting challenge in our industry was with the tariffs, and that really didn't do much from our standpoint, except for require our customers to at least look into other vendors. So there was some qualifying of new vendors prior to COVID, and then COVID showed up, and suddenly all of the materials were quickly sold, and people are replenishing and not able to replenish as fast as possible. So then they are in turn also requalifying or qualifying new vendors. So we're seeing customers sending in 2 or 3 of the same materials. They're rushing them. That's been the big influx for us, is a lot of rush tests. They need to get this tomorrow, and we have pretty fast turnaround time already, and people are still using our rush services. So that's been pretty big for business lately.
Yeah, everybody's trying to figure out how to get through this, and the supply chain.
Yeah,
we became so efficient with our supply chains, I think, that now some companies might even be rethinking that a little bit. They still want to be efficient, but realizing that having some redundancy and resilience when something like this disrupts it.
Right.
I think we'll see more companies doing that. Like you say, maybe they want to have 3 suppliers of a material instead of just 1.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just telling someone else who's running a small business, as an entrepreneur, as a small business owner, and operator, you never ever feel comfortable. The finish line is never there. It's always constantly moving. And this moment you start feeling comfortable is when your competitor jumps over you or passes you by. And so this has been kind of a wake-up call for everyone who is trying to fulfill orders frantically, is that maybe we should have had 2 or 3 vendors qualified. Maybe we should have tested some more vendors in advance, or even had relationships with the lab who can do that type of testing, because we're getting still new customers every week. Trying to jump in this game of quickly replenish their supplies. Yeah,
everybody's trying to figure it out, and I'm sure they are leaning on you over there a lot right now. But it's great to hear that you're functioning and business is strong. And I think our industry, when I think about the botanical industry and the dietary supplement industry in particular, seems like whenever there's been a crisis, and we've been around long enough to have been through a few of them, whether they're financial or whatever they are, this industry seems to do okay. People maybe just want to focus on their health, and that can be good for our business, even though it's not the reasons we want it to be.
I have data to corroborate that. We've been around for almost 24 years, and there's been an Eric Schneiderman's thing, there's been a DNA thing, there's been a housing crisis thing, there's been some of SARS and MARS and VARS and SARS, and in each one of those instances, just like this one, where there's uncertainty in the planet, testing goes up. And what I understand is sales in the herbs and dietary supplements go up, which equates to more testing. So it's kind of a funny place to be. We're in no way happy that this is the current climate of the world. In any way, believe me, I want my beaches back. I'm in California. And no, I didn't go protest. I sat at home and watched the protesters. But the fact is, we always do well when there's uncertainty in the industry or even in the world. So we expect this surge to continue for a while. And the kind of commentary behind it is that we have to test. Companies have to test more, and they're spending more on the products that they're making, and they're trying to figure out how to recoup their costs and all this. I mean, this is additional work that maybe they should have always been doing. And the good news is I have a solution. And my solution is to take the cost of quality and put it towards in the marketing category. And what I mean by that is to share from the mountaintops the high quality that is your product. Share the test results from the labs, share your labs, share every single step of the way that goes into making a good quality product. One, because the consumers want to know, and two, your competitors can't because they're not. If you can't brag about your contract manufacturer and you can't brag about your lab, you can't brag about the results, then you need to consider some of your sources of materials. Quality doesn't have to be a painful line item in the P&L. It could be up with marketing just as much as anything else. This is why to buy our product. This is why ours is going to work. I know we can't talk about that so easily, but share that cost. And not a lot of companies are doing that. And I think that's one of the solutions to recovering your investment on all this expensive testing that people are having to do.
Well, that's it. It is an investment, and it's part of your brand story, and it's a great story, right? I'm a consumer. Consumers want to know where the stuff comes from. They want to understand that it's high quality and it is what it claims to be, and all those things. And you're right. All that documentation, all that lab work, that's part of that story. And so I would love to see more companies sharing as much of that all the way through to the consumer as possible.
Yeah, I mean, Gaia has been doing it as a leader in the category for a long, long time. Amazon dabbled at it. There's not too many others are doing it, which is what funny part is in California that cannabis does it all day. On the recreational side, when you purchase a product, there's a QR code to a lab result, and they're proud about their labs, proud about their results. In this industry, it's somehow kept secret, and I'm working really hard to help change that as a standard. People talk about their sustainability, talk about organic and fair trade, but let's talk about what lab tested your materials and let's share the results. Even if the consumers don't even have any clue what they're looking at, I think the option for the access of data is really important nowadays. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I've wondered why companies don't do that more. Because you're right, you brought up Gaia. That's a great story. They've been doing it, the Know Your Herb thing. They've been doing that for years, and there are a couple of examples here and there, but it's not common practice, and I just really don't understand why.
I have one answer from someone I respect and trust, and they said they don't want to share their lab because they're worried if they do, everyone's going to go to that lab and make that lab busy and slow. And to that, I said, just bring it.
Yeah.
Let's test it. Let's test that theory. The other answer is you don't want to share what lab you're using because you're using a crappy lab. Or you're not proud of that lab, or maybe the results aren't great and you don't want to share those. I think it's a new paradigm to actually share the results at that level, at the consumer level. So, I mean, here's the thing. You already spent the money on it, right?
Yeah.
Cash in on it. Don't put it in the drawer of a mid-level quality control professional. Put it on your website under a page called quality and try to make more money from that investment.
Absolutely.
That's what I'm pushing.
I think we'll start to see more of that because it's something that consumers do want, whether it's lab results or wanting to understand how the farmers were treated wherever the agricultural product was produced, or all those details. People want that information. They want to take that into account, especially when they're buying something for health.
Right.
Hopefully we'll see more of that, and hopefully, let's test that and see how busy they can make you over there, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I want to chat about something else I noticed on your website the other day, and got some information on there about hand sanitizer. Obviously, hand sanitizer is one of those things that there's a supply crunch and all that. But something you don't really think about all the time is how do you make sure that hand sanitizer really is good? And so you're doing testing of that material, right?
Yeah, we actually opened up testing to the industry, but my first push was towards local. There's a few distilleries local to us. There's one in Long Beach, one in Santa Ana. And I just reached out because they've, their sales are down. You can't go there so easily and buy booze. And so they're quickly retooling to make hand sanitizer. And they're doing this for the, first responders, whatever. Mm-hmm. So I went off and reached out to at least two of them and said, hey, I'll do the testing for free just because you're helping out. And I don't have a lot I can do here at Alkemist Labs to help out the COVID situation other than help people who are helping people. That's kind of we're secondary in that. So I reached out, and out of the two I reached out to, one was extremely excited and is testing with us, and we're doing free testing. And the other told me that it's not required, which they are incorrect. And you can only do so much hard selling to someone who thinks they know everything. So that's out of my hands. But since that little blurb on our website, on our emails, we've been seeing a fair uptick in hand sanitizer testing, and it's very, very simple gas chromatography testing, alcohol content. It's, pretty plug and play. So just trying to see any other opportunities we have to, either help out in the industry or, maybe grow a little bit with it.
Yeah, and that's an important area too, because same thing, people are trusting this hand sanitizer. It needs to work. It needs to be the real deal.
Yeah.
So how do people have that faith? Again, show them the lab results, right?
Yeah, exactly. I used one yesterday, and it must have been 90% aloe, because it just would not absorb, and I had to wash it off to it was obviously not alcohol.
Yeah.
It was like aloe with some alcohol or something like that. So it just goes to show you, just because you're buying it off the internet or wherever. My inbox is full of hand sanitizer and masks right now, sales of that. So just like anything, trust is important. When you lose trust, you can't get it back. It can be brand destroying, reputation destroying. So, good test behind a product is always important. And I said it before, I'll say it again, labs cost less than lawyers. So, a couple $100 test is going to keep you out of trouble.
Yeah, absolutely. And, don't we want to be putting out the best product we can put out? I think so. So
yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Labs. So, we do supply side. So we've been doing that for 25 odd years now. And I just have to say that over the last 3 to 5 years in particular, from my perspective, labs are the rock stars now. People, for years, it was hard to get people to want to talk about that stuff.
Right.
And we put on seminars and things at the trade show and get an okay crowd, but, not what I was hoping. And that's really changed now. There's a lot of focus on the quality issue and the need for high quality labs, which has got to be good for your business. At the same time that it's good for the industry.
Yeah. I mean, we've been growing steadily year after year. There's been some interesting movements in the lab industry, as you're aware of. Big labs buying other big labs. And if I had taken up an opportunity to sell my lab 5 years ago, and I won't use names, I would have been bought and then sold, and then shut down last year.
Wow.
So we're one of the biggest small labs remaining, which is an interesting sort of David and Goliath situation we're in. My last name is Sudberg. It was shortened from Sudberger, which is South Mountain sheep herders. So my people are sheep herders. So that's a funny parallel in there. But there is a place for little labs. There's a place for big labs. Depending on the service you want and the turnaround you want, you can make those decisions. But labs are definitely important. There's a lot more discussion about them in the industry. I think they've always been sexy. So that's one of my problems. I don't know.
No, you're right. It just took everybody else a while to catch up.
Right.
So on your supply chain for running the lab, because you obviously have to get certain materials you're using, is that getting crunched at all, or are things pretty smooth there with you getting the supplies you need to operate?
So far so good. No major issues that we're aware of. But just a funny story on that. Back in the housing crisis, when they were not making houses, that means they were not laying new carpet. And new carpet is manufactured in a carpet manufacturing facility that produces a waste. Well, the waste is acetonitrile, which is very heavily used in the lab business. It practically runs half of our machines. So because of the housing crisis, no houses were being built, no carpet was being sold, no carpet was being made, and there was a massive shortage on a chemical in the lab, completely separate industry category, but it had a major impact on us in the lab business. We're not seeing that yet. But we learned from that experience, and we have been trying to sort of stockpile essential solvents and test tubes and other things that we use on a regular basis, because that could cripple someone really fast if they can't, if they can make all the product you want, but if you can't get your bottles, your labels, then what are you going to do? So it's something we're paying attention to closely.
Yeah, this whole, we are so connected, the supply chain, and you're right. There could be something that happens in a completely separate industry somewhere, that affects us. And I think that's what a lot of people, the conversations I'm having, a lot of companies are really asking themselves those questions about that, trying to figure out how do I build in that redundancy and that ability to not have one disruption in my supply chain basically put me into stall,
Well, that speaks to even your choice for vendors, right? Having to make sure you have multiple vendors qualified to supply your raw ingredients, but also labs. If you're going to one lab that does all the testing and they have a problem, or let's say they have a computer breach or some sort of hacking situation. I know a lot of customers who were severely affected by a big lab's recent IT breach that shut them down for weeks. This is a good reason why to have whatever choices there are in our lab, in our industry remaining, several labs qualified, audited, qualified, and maybe even make sure they have your methods transferred from lab to lab.
Yeah.
The same kind of things. Go ahead.
Are you seeing much, so the lab community, you seeing communication, collaboration there? Are people trying to help each other out, or is it more?
No, I don't have any, I don't have data points on either. There's no major camaraderie. The little guys and we all talk. Whenever a lab gets purchased, we send our quick emails. Oh, did you see that one go? And the big labs don't need the little labs, so they don't talk to us. Yeah, so there's not. I don't want to say there's like a animosity or anything, but there's definitely not a. Right. There's no family of labs in our industry. They really don't play well together at all these days. Except for the little ones, we all kind of trade samples back and forth for our centers of excellence. But the big labs don't really play much with the little labs at all these days.
What about with the way you work with all of your customers now? I assume, like me, you're on a ton of these, whether it's Zoom or Teams or whatever other platform, but video call after video call. Is that?
Yeah, and we're insisting on Zoom video calls. We've been using Zoom for a while, but and this is Teams. This works great as a GoToMeeting as well. But we have tried to get as many video calls as possible, especially in the days where we can't meet people, shake hands, have them over to the lab. There's no hugs anymore. It's a strange time. As you know, I'm a hugger. We meet once and we're now hugging friends. Customers included, when they come to my lab, usually they end up leaving after a big hug. But that's why I think these Zoom meetings are really critical, just to still see the facial expressions. I mean, you can't see anything behind these now. You can't see if I'm smiling or not smiling. So when you're a chance to be with a customer, if there's a phone call, that's one thing. Getting a face-to-face, I think, adds a little bit more of a personal touch and builds that relationship a little bit faster. So even if I'm just doing a phone call to someone who works for me in my exec team, we just do a Zoom call instead, because ordinarily I'd walk out my door, walk over and say hi and interrupt them there. Might as well just interrupt them here,
Yeah, it's true. We're doing the same thing, and it happened so fast. When this all happened and we all had to start working from home. It was just the next day that suddenly everything was video based. So
right.
Trying to keep those relationships alive. We use the word social distancing, but I was on a webinar a few weeks ago, and one of the presenters used the term physical distancing, which I like more because if anything, I'm spending more time in some cases.
That's right.
Having a conversation like this, or with a group of people, whether it's a happy hour or a meeting or what have you. So. Yes, we have to physically distance, but we don't have to socially distance.
Right. It's a good phrase correction or term correction. It is the truth, because we're actually, I think maybe we might be even socializing, not necessarily more, but differently, but physical still required, the 6 foot situation. And to be honest, I don't know when maybe it's not going to turn off when it dims. I'm not sure where we'll return to, whether hugs will be, as prevalent as possible, or we'll all be wearing masks for the rest of our lives. Yeah. I don't know. I can't really predict at this moment.
We don't have that kind of visibility yet into what this looks like. It'll be different.
Yeah.
But what will that different be? Not really sure.
Yeah. No one knows. Yeah.
Although I will say I am looking forward to getting together with some people when it can be done safely, and raising a glass or having a meal or whatever that might be. It's tough not to do that. So this is the next best thing, I guess.
Yeah.
How do you, I ask everybody this when I have folks on the show here, with everything going on and all of this just uncertainty, in some cases fear, in some cases tragedy, it's a lot to deal with. How do you stay positive? What do you do to stay positive, to keep hopeful and push forward?
I think realizing that we have enough of mostly everything. As you can always need more money, need more stuff, need more things. But the fact is when you take a step out and you realize we can't go out, we can't go to the movie, can't go to the restaurants, can't do all these things, and you realize what's important. The fact that I have a company that's open and I'm still employed, and no one in my immediate family has been sick or is sick right now, I think that, to me, with the exception of a Tesla Model X with ludicrous mode, it's all anyone can ever ask for this time.
Right.
just realizing what we have is enough, and it always has been, and it makes you really think about what we really need, and what we spend our times seeking, and being rude to each other over and all that stuff. It feels like I'm living in a small town, and I live in Long Beach. This is a big city with a lot of people. No one on the road anymore. No one's on the streets. Even if I go to a restaurant, it's rarely populated. It's just a different time, and it feels like everything just slowed down to the point where we can maybe stop and enjoy, a sunny day a little bit differently because we got nothing else to do.
Right.
So
I think that some positive things, as weird as it sounds, because there's a lot of negative stuff going on with this whole situation right now that we have to deal with, obviously. But long term, I'm hopeful that some positive things will come out of this and remain, whether it's that, prioritization, what's really important, and thinking about that, and family and friends and relationships. And that's my hope. And I'm right there with you that I think a lot of people are having those conversations with themselves and their families. And I think some of that stuff is going to stick. Yeah.
I've seen more people outside with their kids than I even realized were in my neighborhood, because I'm home 4 o'clock. I play with the kids in the front yard, and we see neighbors walking by. But now you go there, and it's like there's people that I didn't know had kids.
Yeah.
They did daycare, and they've been at work, and then they come home. They do the the nighttime routine, the repeat, and now there's all these people that I didn't even know existed. That when this dims or slows down or lifts, I intend to socialize with more. So again, just realizing what's important is your health, sort of health and your wealth, I guess. Just being employed, just being grateful that we have jobs and paychecks and we are healthy, and that is it. I mean, there's not much more important than that right there at this moment. So
everything else is, I want to say frivolous, but kind of,
unnecessary.
We in that hurried, fast-paced time, sometimes you're right, you lose focus of some of those things, and maybe fill your time and fill your day with things that, when you look at, you don't really need it,
Right. Well, it kind of pulls you out of the race, or feeling like constantly under siege of, growing, getting bigger, getting more, save more, have more, all this stuff. It's like, now that you can't do those things, you just take a step back, take a deep breath, and realize you have it pretty good right now. And it changes your outlook on things. That's not to say that once this thing lifts, I'm not going to go out to every one of my restaurants, my favorite restaurants, for like 2 weeks straight. All that weight I lost, but cooking at home. I mean, man, we've never cooked at home this many times in a row, ever. And our kitchen looks like a commercial kitchen. It's just destroyed, dishes and splatter. It's insane. Yeah. But we're enjoying, eating at home, and thank God for the Instant Pot. That thing is amazing. So.
Right. Yeah. I love cooking. I've always been kind of the cook in the family. But now, like our kids are older. But our 2 youngest, brother and sister, they share an apartment, and they were never really doing a lot of cooking. Now they're not only cooking, they're inventing stuff. They're asking me about different techniques and spices, and they're enjoying it. And to me, that's going to serve them for the rest of their life. As we get through this situation, that's going to stick with them, and it's going to serve them for the rest of their life. And I have to believe that's happening all across the country.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So there's some positivity in this, as long as we're not unemployed or sick.
Yeah. Right. Well, so far so good.
Right.
And I cannot wait to get together with you and, like you say, share a meal or have a beer or really do anything, And you know what? If you want to give me a hug when I see you, you can give me a hug. I promise you that.
Deal.
Whenever it is. So, maybe we can check back in again with you here and down the road a little bit in a few weeks as we see how things are developing and get another update from you.
Wonderful. I'd love that.
All right. Thanks for coming on the show today. Be safe, be well, and thanks for all that you do.
My pleasure. Thank you.